Welcome everyone. You are in the right place to see an overview of IMAGINiT utilities for Revit 2019 with your presenter, Jim Stoneberger. Jim, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So as Janet introduced, we're going to go through our IMAGINiT utilities for Revit 2019. Most of these utilities are a part of our utility package that have been, for last year and several years prior. We do have some new utilities for 2019, which we will cover as well. My name is Jim Stoneberger. I'm the Building Services Division Technical Team Manager East, and I will be giving you this demonstration today. So just kind of an overview of our utilities. First of all, IMAGINiT utilities are an add-in for Revit. We do have several utilities, and as I stated, we have a few that are new this year. Actually, you can see on here just in this image, some of the new utilities are this annotation font update utility. We'll talk about that, a shared parameter checker, and a family placement tool. Keep in mind that our Revit utilities, as much as we would love to, Autodesk does not allow third-party utilities for Revit LT. So any Revit LT customers or users, I would take a look at maybe upgrading to full version of Revit so you can take advantage of our Revit utilities. All right, so one of the first utilities I want to talk about, so I have a few utilities that I'm going to talk about up front that we've had for either some time or a little bit of time, but I think just we're going to go through an overview. I promise this presentation won't be death by PowerPoint, but there are a few of these we're going to just take a look at in PowerPoint, and then if we need to open them up and look at functionality inside the software when we open it up, we can do that. But most of these, or some of these, are pretty self-explanatory. So the first one I want to look at is this link fixer. So the link fixer, what this allows you to do is go through, when you have projects where you have one or several links brought into your Revit project, you can use this link fixer to go in and update basically a file path of where those links are. So if you move a bunch of restructure your project folder and you have a bunch of links that you need to point to a new path inside of Revit, instead of having to go through and do those one at a time, you can use this link fixer to repath to point to the right directories for multiple links. It especially is helpful when you have large projects that have 20, 30, 40 links sometimes in them, so you don't have to go through and do those one at a time. It also helps if, let's say, you rebuild, I don't know, maybe you have a new server and you have a new server location, so you need to go through and point to that. So it's basically just a quick way of repathing and fixing the location of links. Next tool we have is called our DWF Plus tool. I know that not a lot of people use DWFs, but for those of you that do, this tool is it's pretty cool. So what this does is it allows you to create DWF files just as you would from Revit like normal, but you can include a lot more parametric information and data that you would bring over inside of the DWF that Revit doesn't give you just natively. One of the other things this tool does, it will create views inside of your DWF file, either 2D or 3D views that point to specific objects or specific information. So, for example, if you wanted to look at specific doors that had a certain type of hardware, you can set those parameters inside of this tool so that when it creates the DWF file, now you have a whole series of 3D views that point out and look at those specific elements. So it really kind of just helps with the DWF functionality that comes out of Revit. We also have a Earth connector. Again, I know that not necessarily a lot of people use Google Earth anymore, but if you are and you still do, the Earth connector works pretty well. So with the Earth connector, oops, where do we go? Let's bring that back up. All right, so with the Earth connector, this allows you to pull your information out of Revit and plug it into Google Earth. It also will work with phases that you have designed in Revit. So if you have phases built into Revit, that will bring out, it'll plug into Google Earth as basically timeline information. So you can run your animations and simulations in Google Earth based on that phase information that comes out. But Google Earth will, again, it'll pull that model and model information out of Revit, allowing you to select individual or all different categories of Revit elements that are in Revit. So if you didn't want to bring over all of your analytical structural information, for example, you could exclude that for what gets brought out to Google Earth. But again, it'll create a model that gets plugged into Google Earth. All right, parameter concatenator. So this, first of all, is a word that took me about 10 minutes to practice before I could actually pronounce concatenator. But what this does, so as you may or may not know, and I believe it was 2018, Autodesk added the functionality of being able to merge parameters inside of a schedule. So you can have, if you wanted to have a parameter inside of your schedule that showed the width and the height parameter separated by a character that you choose, you can do that. So this is a tool that's very similar to that, only what this does is it's not just in schedule. So any place you have a text field, you can go in into any category in Revit. An example would be maybe in a room schedule. If you wanted to put specific information into your type comments, but you wanted that information to pull parameter information from your project, you can set that up. So you might go in and set in your comments field that you want, you're going to type in a comment of all area in this room equals, and then as you select, you can see down here, you can come in and you can select any category. So it'll place inside of brackets the category or the parameter name, so that when you finish this, it'll go out and it'll build and generate a parameter information or a text note information that replaces the bracket, what's shown inside of the brackets and the parameter, with the actual text value from Revit. I think when we do get into Revit, I'll go through and I'll show you an example of that, of how that works, to kind of better explain it. Couple of the Revit MEP tools we have. So you have, first of all, it's called an adjust pipe tool. This is really helpful when you're going through and you're having to make adjustments inside of your model. Sometimes you have fittings that don't work only because pipe is not necessarily at an angle that can work, and it might be off by just tenths or hundredths of a degree, or sometimes it needs to be rotated in a certain way. So this tool will go through and it'll evaluate and find all the locations when you're working with placing fittings and whatnot. It'll find the locations of the inaccuracies inside of your model, and then give you the ability to replace or adjust that pipe instead of having to go through and do it manually. We also have a space update utility. So the space update utility it'll go through and it'll update your space information based on associated room information. So not only will it do this within the model that you're working in, you can also pull information from linked models. So if you have an architectural model linked into your MEP model, for example, and you place spaces inside of your MEP model, and you want all of the space information to match the room information, you can use this tool and it'll go through and do that. So I know that Autodesk also has a utility that's very similar to this, but the advantage of using this is that it doesn't change just names and numbers. What it'll do, it'll actually bring over any parametric parameter data from the room that matches that you can use inside a space. Things like, you know, phases, for example. So it's a little more robust than the tool that comes out of the box with Revit. All right, grid select. So grid select, this works in a number of ways. First of all, you're going to select a grid. Using this tool, you're allowed. It helps you. You can select a grid line and then basically select all of the elements that are either collinear or run along that grid line, and you can set a tolerance to this. So you can say everything that's within, you know, 2 feet of this grid line, I want to be able to select. Or you can set it to everything that's touching this grid line, I want to be able to select that. So if you're trying to make adjustments to, you know, all the columns, for example, that are along a grid line, or any, like I said, any information that is within a certain tolerance of that grid line, you can go through and use this, and it'll select all the elements based on that criteria. You can apply it to information that's on every level, or basically everywhere along the plane of that grid line, or information that's just specific to the level that you're working in. All right, tell you what, let's do this. Let's go out and take a look at Revit. So you'll see that inside of Revit, we have an IMAGINiT tab. So that IMAGINiT tab has all of our utilities that are in here. So let's just start. Let's take a look at maybe we'll start at the beginning. We have renumbering tools. So our renumbering tools are some of the oldest tools that we have. We have, you know, I believe that we came up with the door, maybe the door and room update tool, renumbering tools back in, I want to say, version 9. You know, even before they started to go to year-specific versions. And I know that there are a lot of renumbering tools out there since then. But so what these tools do, if we take a look at, let's see, let me go over here. So for example, I have this floor plan that has rooms in it, let's say 1 through, you know, 16, or whatever the case is. So with our renumbering tools, we can go in, and if we have a room renumbering tool, we can renumber these rooms based on a few different options or methods of selecting. So first of all, we have Renumber Rooms using selection. Selection method, we can, you know, pick individual rooms or tags in a desired order. So by using this tool, we can go in and we can individually select, I want this to be 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, so on and so forth, and Revit will renumber based on that pick order. We can use a window to select. So if you use a window to select, when we select next, this allows us to drag a window across the entire floor plane. And then the proposed sequencing that comes up is based on the room numbers that are here. So current room number 1 through 16, those are going to be renumbered. So I'm going to start with my room number, maybe room number 100, increments by 1. I can set this to 100, 10, whatever we want it to be. And then when you propose, it gives you these proposed room numbers. If you're happy with that, you can select renumber, and it renumbers the rooms accordingly. So let's go back. I want to show you a couple of other sort of hidden aspects of our room renumbering tool. So one of the ways you can also renumber is based on let's see, selected rooms. This is one of my favorites. So select rooms along a path line segments. So when you do this, you can see that Revit gives you this cursor, this crosshair, so you can come in now and you can select and you can say, I want to renumber based on this path. I don't know why I would do that, but you know, it allows you to select a path for which you want the room numbers to start in and then end in. So once we do that, now you can see that the order that's shown in this list is based on the path that I drew with that line. And then again, same thing, I can start at a certain number, propose. It's going to start at 100, increments of 1, renumber, and it renumbers accordingly. All right, so renumber, we're going to renumber rooms. We can also insert rooms. So if we wanted to insert a new room, let's say we had a area where we made this room, we added a little utility closet or something in here. We can insert a room number, and it will only change the affected room numbers for everything that is after maybe room 109, or whatever the case is. So those are our room renumbering tools. So renumbering, we also have our door mark update tool. It's pretty simple. We can update based on window selection, just like we did with rooms, or based on mark direction, either into room or out of room. So if I wanted to do all doors in model, or even all doors just in this current view, into room, next. So this is going to show me what my current mark is. So the current door mark is 1. The to room and from room information is right here. So over here, this is what is proposed. So if I look at this, and maybe I had 2 doors that were in room 100, the Revit, or this utility, will automatically give you A and B. Or if you didn't like this, maybe you wanted one of these doors to go into a different room, you can simply change in here where whatever you wanted the information to be. You'll also notice that when you do that, it is sort of a hyperlink. It jumps to the door that is in question that you're looking at. So once you do that, you click on update, and it'll update all of those door numbers. Now I don't have door tags in here, so let's take a look at that real quick. Let's add some door tags, current view. So you can see it updated those rooms accordingly. Now in this one, this is the one that I changed to 107A. Obviously, again, I don't know why you do that, but for demonstration purposes, so you can see how you function within that dialog box. That's what took place. So that's our door renumbering tool. We have our element renumbering tool. This allows you really to renumber just about anything that has numbering sequence to it, whether it's communication devices, grids, specialty equipment, views on sheets. This is actually a really great one. So if you're familiar with well, let's see, let me go over here. I think this project has. So if I have all these views on a sheet, if I wanted to renumber these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as opposed to whatever they are, we can use that element renumbering tool, views on sheet, renumber elements in selected order. I like to use this method because that allows me then to go in and pick. I want this to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I have, this is what the current is. I'm going to start at number 1, propose the new, and select renumber. So now you have those view numbers updated accordingly. Again, the renumbering tools, these are really, really helpful. Keep in mind that the point to all of the IMAGINiT Revit utilities really is to save time and effort on sort of monotonous tasks or things that take a long time that really shouldn't. Or you think to yourself, man, this should be a lot easier than it actually is. All right. So let's take a look at the Excel tools. So with the Excel tools, we can export and import project data. So when you export and import project data with Excel and to Excel, this is, in essence, you are allowed to export and import anything that is a parameter with information that does not drive the model or geometry. So for example, you could not export area or square footage of a room and change it in Excel and bring it back into Revit and say, I actually want that room to be 300 square feet, not 250 square feet. Obviously, Revit wouldn't know, okay, you want this to be 300, not 250. Well, there are 1,000 things that affects. Which wall gets adjusted in order for that to take place? You know, so you can't drive model geometry with information, but you can import and export information that is text-driven. So with this, when you export, the first thing we're going to do is go through and set up a template that we want to use for export. We can either change one or we can add a new one. So if we add a new one, we need to go through and select which category of information we want this to be, and I'll just select rooms, give it a template name, and then we're going to export either instance or type parameters, and then you can go through and set this up. Or the other option is to go through, like I said, and edit one of the templates that you've already created or that's already in there. So all of this information that's in here, I can either, if I'm looking at the category of rooms, this is just very similar to schedules. It's showing you all the parameters. In this case, though, all the instance parameters that are a part of rooms. So the first thing that you want to make sure is in here is a parameter called your GUID or GUI parameter. It's for really the GUI parameter is a global unique ID parameter. It's sort of an address to make sure everything is being pulled and pushed in the correct location. I guess in terms of a database lingo, it's kind of the key field, if you will. So it's really important that this doesn't get changed when you're in Excel, but we'll show you how that is protected. So I want to make sure that GUID parameter is in here first. Now I can go through and I can begin to select all of these other parameters that are in here that I want to show. Keep in mind that this is not attached to a schedule. Schedule is reporting all of the same information, but this is pulling information from the actual room object itself. So again, I can go through here and I can select which information I want to be able to change, or if I do have schedules built in here, I can select a schedule from here and I can import from schedule. So now this is just a quick way of pulling the information that I want to show inside of that Excel spreadsheet. And here I have level information in here twice, so I'm going to get rid of that, get rid of one of them. These are simply push and pull buttons just like you would have within schedules, for example, that you can add or remove parameters. So if I look at this, my room schedule I have set up doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of information in it. So I'm going to take a look at, yep, there's another schedule in here. So this second floor room finish schedule, I'm not worried about the parameters that are filters maybe that are built into that schedule that keep this or confine this to just the second floor. This is simply pulling the parameters from the schedule so it matches what's in here. So if I import from schedule, yeah, there we go, that's much better. So now I have base, floor, wall, ceiling, I have the area. Again, I can move these up and down just like you would inside of a schedule. I have the level that's in there. Again, the level's in there twice, so I'm going to pull that out so I only have it in there once. So once you get all of this set up, you can, maybe it's a bigger project, if you did want to filter by certain information, maybe you did want to pull out only information that's on level 2. So I could say level equal to my second floor. So this is now going to be a spreadsheet that only shows me information for the second floor level. This is small enough, this project's small enough that I'm going to go through and I'm actually not going to set any filters to this. So once you kind of get all the information that established the way that you want it, we're going to click Save. So this now is that template that I'm going to use to export information. So I'm going to select that template and click on, so our export option, we can export all, everything that's only in this view, or based on a specific phase, or even based on what it is we have selected. You can also include information that comes from models that you might have linked into this project. I'm going to simply export all information and click Export. And it's going to tell me that it found 98 elements to export. So there are 98 rooms inside of this project. So let's go in here and save this as room information. Okay, so once I save that, it shows me that that's complete. I can go over to Excel now, and you'll see that it actually opens up that Excel file for me. So here's all that information. So this is all of my room information. Now remember I talked about the GUI file. You don't want to change this. Well, you can't. So you'll see that this is grayed out. We can't go in and make adjustments to this. Same with area. So area, level, these cells that are grayed out are cells that are not information that you can make changes and push back to Revit. We could, though, however, make changes if we wanted to change the room numbers or even all these finishes. So base finish, let's say I wanted this to be wood. And I'm going to be boring, excuse me, and make this wood all the way across. And in floor finish, we're going to say this is all tile. So every room in the building is going to have tile floors. And wall finish, not going to be specific right now, but we're going to paint. So add that all the way down. And then ceiling, we'll call this 2x4 ACT. Okay, so I have that information. I'm going to go ahead and save this Excel file and close it, leave it open, whichever you want to do. So now that I'm back in my project, again, I've gone into Excel, or maybe you have a project manager or designer working that doesn't work in Revit, but just needs to go through, or even an intern that's going to go through and fill out all that room information inside of Excel. So once that's saved, now that I'm back in my project, I can come over here to import data, and I'm going to import room information, but I'm going to select which file. So this is that same file that I was just working in. I'm going to select OK, and select Next. And this is going to show me now all of the information that I'm importing into my project. So you can see the grayed out, again, those are parameters that I couldn't change, but everything that's green is information that's going to be updated inside of my project. So if I wanted to change room names, room numbers, again, all this finished material, this is how everything is going to be updated when I bring it back into Revit. So I'm going to select Next. I have 98 rooms that are ready. Select Next, and I have 98 that were successfully updated. So now if I look at any one of these rooms, you can see that the base finish, ceiling finish, wall, and floor finishes were all updated. And actually I could go even back over to that finish schedule, that room schedule. So now all this information is pushed back into Revit. Okay, so that's our project data export and import with the Revit utilities, or the Excel utilities. And again, that can be based on any category of information you have modeled in Revit. So if you wanted to update comments or update materials, notes, or project notes, or whatever the case is, whether it's a type parameter or an instance parameter, you can go through and do exactly that. So back in that Excel spreadsheet, if I had specific rooms that I wanted to update comments in because those were instance parameters, I could update comments, I could update, specific to individual rooms. All right. So we also have what's called our room contents import. So what this is, you have the ability to go in and you're gonna set up a spreadsheet basically where you have a family name and a type name and the quantity and then the room number. So we can export a list out of Revit to establish or create this criteria. Once we have this spreadsheet set up, I can come into Revit and use this Excel room content import tool, and what this does is allows you to browse to that file that you have, that spreadsheet you have set up, and select open. So now it's going to go through and it's going to look for room numbers that match what I had inside of that spreadsheet. It's telling me that I do have some issues. So room number 14, not ready. I have 2. So there are 2 room numbers inside of that spreadsheet basically that don't match what's in this model. So it doesn't have the ability to bring those in. These are the room numbers that match what's inside of that spreadsheet so that it can bring in information that's appropriate. I also have families. So I have families. Basically, these are families that everything works. So everything is good to go with all the families that I had in there. And then these are all the families that I am going to bring in based on what's required from that spreadsheet. So when I click on create, again, I'm getting that warning that there are 2 requirements, which are those 2 rooms that don't exist. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, let's go ahead and continue. Okay, telling me there are identical instances, and the utility is telling me that it created 41 pieces of content, but there were 5 requirements that encountered issues. So again, that has to do with what information was in that spreadsheet doesn't match the information that was in this model. So I want to make sure that when you start to work on that information that's in the spreadsheet, you probably export the information from the model you're working in. That way you have everything matches accordingly. So now, if I look at these rooms, I have the content that was designated to go into each room is now placed in the room. Now, of course, I have now the requirement that I need to go in and start to move this stuff around and begin to set this up. So I can't get it to place it automatically, in an exact grouping or configuration, but it brings everything in based on what you had said you want to bring in per those room numbers. So it's a quick way. I mean, if you have maybe you have a program you put together and you know that all your classrooms, for example, have they all have common furniture or families that get brought in, or equipment, or whatever the case is, maybe in a K through 12 project, or in a hospital project you have beds and equipment and monitors and devices that get in that are part of that room. So you can set that up inside of the spreadsheet so that you can come in and use this tool and very quickly add information to your model based on that tool. All right, so next tool we'll take a look at, we have this translate tool. This is kind of a neat tool. This allows you, it uses Google Translate to go in and translate from any language that's available to, again, any language that's available. So if I wanted to translate this from English to Spanish, maybe I have a project where it's international and I need to be able to work on it here, but I need to go in and translate this to a different language so it can be understood. So I'm going to translate English to Spanish. I'm going to click Scan. So this is going to show me every place I have a text parameter, this is my current text information. I have room name information. I have, again, a bunch of text that's been brought in here. Now, keep in mind that once this is done and you click on Translate, it's now going to show you what the translated information is. So it's translating from English to Spanish. So this tool works pretty well. I would only caution that you probably want to have someone that is native to whatever language you're translating to double check it. Just make sure. I mean, as you know, or may know with working with Google Translate, again, it works pretty well, but it's not perfect by any means. But once I get the translation, I can click Update, and it'll go through and it'll translate everything that's in my model. So room names, text information, whatever the case may be. All right. So let's see, change case. So this tool, I'm going to go ahead and undo that real quick just so we can get back to this. Our change case tool, this allows you to go through and change the case of room names, text notes, view names, or view title on sheet. So if I want to make sure that everything is all uppercase, I can change everything in this model. Let's say I want to look at text notes. So I'm going to change all the text notes to be uppercase. Go ahead and scan. So these are all the text notes that I have. This is what they all should be. Looks good. So I'm going to change, and it's going to tell me that 15 elements were updated. So now I have text notes that I might have to go through and still clean up a little bit, like so, but now everything is changed to uppercase. So the change case tool is exactly that. It'll go through and it'll change everything from uppercase to even title case if you wanted, or all lowercase, whatever the no pun intended case may be. All right, parameter copy. So this tool allows you to copy parameter information from one parameter to another parameter inside of the same element. So for example, let's say I went through and I had someone working in here and all the doors in this area down below are existing doors that are meant to remain. So what I should have done is gone in and inside of the comments area for all of these doors changed existing to remain. But maybe I had someone that wasn't paying attention or was pretty new to Revit, so they went in and clicked on edit and edited the type comments to say existing to remain. Well, that's great, except as you may or may not know, now inside of Revit, what happened was I changed all the doors of that type. So all these doors now, oh, let's do it this way. I'm going to select all instances and entire project. So now all of those doors, even if they're up here, wherever they are set to, even over here, existing to remain. Even though this over here, door number 117, is actually a brand new door, inside of my type comments it says existing to remain. So I can use the parameter copy tool. I'm going to go through and I'm going to select the category of doors. So if I look at doors, element parameters, I'm going to transfer basically, copy from, so all of my type comments, I actually want those to be in comments. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for them to be in type comments, so I'm going to instead make them all comments. So once I do that, select next. So now it's showing me that I have 108 comments now that have been updated. So I'm going to select OK. Now that still doesn't help me in some ways, just that alone, because if I go through and I select all of these doors and look at the comments now for those doors, oh, let's do this. So select all instances and entire project. They're all existing to remain. So that's great for all of these, but I have a lot of other doors that don't have that. But now it's easy enough for me to go in and maybe deselect only these doors I have down here, and then I can come in and just simply delete those comments. So now only these doors that are in this area where I intended it to be have that comment of existing to remain. Oh, selecting the wrong door type. There we go. Now, obviously, where I have door types that are of different types, I'd have to update or adjust the same way. But this is easy enough to come in and select these. So maybe I go and I select all of these doors. I'll filter down to doors, comments, existing to remain. So again, there's still some effort that has to take place in terms of getting your annotation notes correct, but that tool, again, that was one example, probably a bad example of how that tool works. So the way that the tool works, in short, is that you're selecting, first of all, a category. So I have a category. Then I'm selecting information that I might have inside of one parameter that gets copied over into information of another parameter. Okay. This is the concatenator that I was talking about. So the concatenator, again, this might be, let's say I had category of rooms. Oops. So rooms. Instance, so base finish, maybe my target parameter is actually comments. So I could say something like all for this room type is to be, and then come down here, select base finish, add that up top. You'll see that it adds this here. So I can select preview if you want, and it'll show you the update inside of the comments of what that's going to be, what that's going to look like. Or I can select OK. It tells me that 98 elements have been updated. So if that parameter were different, if I had gone through and changed the base to be correct for each different room type, now what happens is inside of comments, I have that text that I typed, but you can see it replaced where I had that parameter of base finish with the actual, it copied from one parameter base finish over inside of that note that I had placed in there. So that's an example of the concatenator. All right, let me go back over here. So view setup. View setup, this is a pretty neat utility. When you select this, this allows you to basically quickly generate views based on view templates or view types. So if I have view templates set up in this project, up here you can see that vertically, these are all the view templates that I have. And then horizontally in my rows, these are the levels that I have in the project. These two levels right here, or these two views, are grayed out because level 1, level 2, new construction already exist in the project. But if I wanted to go through and create existing floor plans for level 1, level 2, not worried about architectural plan or structural plan, but maybe I wanted architectural ceiling plans. Again, this is based on I had set up, based on my view filters, so, or view templates, rather, excuse me. So maybe I wanted to go in ultimately and replace my new construction level 1, level 2 with new views for architectural plan that are, again, using that view template. So when I select OK, now you'll see that over here it's generating these views for me automatically. So the view setup tool is really a way, especially if you have a project that's maybe it's a high-rise project or something where you have 22 floors that you need to set up. So you can go through and very quickly, based on view templates or view types, you can go through and set up these views very quickly instead of duplicating view, or if you forget to add views, or maybe you copied levels and you have to go in and manually now create views per level, whatever the case is. All right, dependent view copy, the way this tool works, so let's say I have a project that, again, I have 3 floors in this project, and I've gone through and I've set up on my first floor entry level A, B, and C. So I have area A, area B, and area C set up in here. And again, maybe these are based on scope boxes that you put into the project. Instead of having to generate that information or those views, duplicating views again and again and again, you can use the dependent view copy tool to generate them automatically. Now again, I know that Autodesk themselves have a very similar tool, but the advantage to this is, it brings over a lot of other additional information based on phases, based on, we'll bring over scope boxes, for example. So with this though, I can use this tool to select first what my source view is. So since I have entry level that already has these dependent views set up, I can say I want to mimic this basically for floors 2 and floors 3, or any of these other views that I have set up, reflected ceiling plans, floor plans, whatever the case is. So when I select OK, now you'll see that floors 2 and 3 have those same dependent views set up with the same orientation and information. Okay, so that is the dependent view copy. View cleanup, this is a way of just simply going through and deleting views and cleaning up your project quickly. You may have projects where either you're cleaning up from let's say you get a consultant file and you don't need any of their views or sheets or whatever information you're trying to clean up, or in your project you're at some point trying to do some maintenance and just get rid of views. Instead of having to go through, the traditional way of doing this is to go through and expand these or whatever and hold Control or Shift and one at a time select. As you may know in Revit, you can't hold Shift and just select all of these, because now I've selected this view family and I can't delete that view family. So I would have to maybe hold Shift and select my first bunch and then go through and individually select using the Control key. So view cleanup allows you to go through and just simply either all or nothing, or individually select which views you wanted to delete or get rid of. So once I do that, I can click on Remove, and you'll see it'll tell me that it removed 4 views. But there was one issue. If I look at the details of this, entry level cannot be deleted. But let's see, because of parameter name. So, and then that's probably because I'm in the view. So view cleanup just allows you to go through and delete and get rid of views pretty quickly. All right, so these 3 right here, of course, I'm going to save those for last. Those are the 3 new tools that we have in Revit. We talked about the MEP tools, Space Update and Pipe Adjust. Earth Connector, again, we talked about that. Room Phase Copy. So this tool, this will allow you to go through, so let's say we had in this view where we set up those existing, our existing floor plan. I'm going to go through, let's do this. Oops, I was modeling, and my doors and walls should have actually been created on the existing phase. So now I've gone through and I have my existing floor plan, and maybe all of these rooms that were got placed again accidentally on the new construction instead of existing. Or typically this would be vice versa. You'd go through and you'd model all of your existing conditions first and place your existing rooms. And now when you go to new construction, you want to be able to bring those rooms over. Well, as you know, in Revit, rooms are phase specific. So if I have this room that I can see in new construction, you'll see the phase is grayed out because I can't change the phase of that room. And if I go over to my existing floor plan, that room is nowhere to be found inside of here because rooms can only show up in that phase. So with the room phase copy, this allows me to copy rooms from one phase and create those same rooms on another phase. So if I wanted to create new construction, I'm copying from new construction, levels 1 and 2. 32 rooms were copied. So now I have this room that is on the existing phase. And I can go through it again. It is its own room, so it can have obviously its own information. So this is existing 114. If I go back to new construction, or go here where the room tags are already in place. So these are now separate, but they're phase specific. So the room phase copy is a way of copying rooms from one phase to another phase. We had the grid select tool we talked about, DWF Plus tool we talked about. So LegendCreator, this tool, this allows you to go in and build. I don't know if, how many of you use the Legend tool to create things like door legends or window legends, whatever the case is. But let's see, let's go back. So inside this project, I want to create a door legend. So if I come in to Legends, create a new legend, and let's call this door legend. So inside I have a door legend. Of course, I can go in and I can place legend components. So let's say I'm going to place a door, and we'll just start with a sample. We'll do the single flush 36 by 84. So a 3 foot by 7 foot door. I'm going to create an elevation view of this and place it. Maybe go into my visibility graphics overrides or apply a view template that I've already set up that I can apply to these legends. I'm going to turn off the frame so that I have just the actual door itself, or vice versa. Maybe I was creating a frame legend. So with this door, I'm going to put some sample text here as well. So with this text, let's say this is door information. I'm not really worried about what this says because, as I stated, this is going to be replaced. This is really just kind of a sample placeholder, text placeholder. So with the, get that out of the way. LegendCreator, what I can do is I can go in and I can select. So when this comes up, it's going to ask me to select categories to copy. I want to copy model and annotation categories. Select OK. Now you can see in here it's telling me to window select. So I went through and I window selected my door and text both. So with that, I have text parameters. I'm going to pull from let's pull the type information, so type name. So what this is, what I'm telling Revit is I want to replace the text that I have in here with the type name of the object that was selected with. So now what this does is it goes through and evaluates the category of doors. Because I selected the category of doors, it looks at every door I have in the project. Oh, actually I'd selected multiple categories, so let's do that again. LegendCreator. So I'm going to Windows select, category of doors, there we go. The text, so the category is doors, the text is going to be type name and select OK. There we go, that's a little better. So now it's generating inside of this legend, it placed every door type that I have modeled in the project. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of cleanup I'm going to have to go through and do manually now, but I don't have to go through and wonder or remember, man, what different doors did I have in this project, or reference back to a schedule. So if it's not modeled in the project, it does not show up in this type legend. And the text, like I said, was adjusted to match whatever the type name was. So you probably would have maybe more, in this case, maybe family name, so it says single flush, you know, double flush, whatever the case is. I'm not going to show my curtain wall door information in here, so I can go through and delete that. Again, I'm going to move this. So there is cleanup that has to be done, but it generates information more automatically. Okay, so here's a door type. Maybe these were the same, so I can get rid of those. This was a unique door type. This was unique. And get rid of those. So now I have this door legend that I can begin to put information to. So I'd probably go through and end up showing this is my width, height, just sort of building, like I said, this door legend. These would be height parameters or height information. So as you know, inside of a legend, such as a door legend, obviously I wouldn't show 3 feet and 7 feet. I would want this to say height and, or excuse me, height and width. So I can go in and I could manually replace the text and do this one at a time. But one of the other tools that we have in here is called our DimensionText update. So the DimensionText update tool, this allows me to go in and do that replacement exercise, or adding a prefix, suffix, adding text below or above more automatically. So if I want to replace text with, I'll call this width, and then select pick. So now I can go in, and as I pick these, it just updates a lot more quickly. So I can do that again, dimension update. This time I'm going to replace with height, pick. So it's a way of updating dimension text that you're overriding text automatically. So another example would be if you had a floor plan where you had 6 or 8 dimensions you needed to call out as plus minus or verify in field or whatever the case is. Instead of having to go in and update them one at a time, you can use that dimension text update to override or update text by picking. It goes much more rapidly, much quicker. Link Fixer, this is the tool we were looking at the beginning. We have Batch Ungroup. This is a great tool. So if you have a project where maybe you have a lot of groups in here and you get to the end of a project, or at a point where you say, man, I want to clean up all of these groups. But if I look at this, I have a bunch of different groups built into this project. So with this batch ungroup, this basically shows you these are all of the, and I guess in this case it didn't have, there wasn't as much of an example as I thought. But let's see, let's go over here, one of these others, and see. So batch ungroup, yeah, so I have 71 model groups that have been created with arrays that I want to ungroup. I have 3 detail groups that I want to ungroup. So I can go through and select all or individually by model versus detail or just specific groups, whatever the case is. So all this does, it's pretty self-explanatory. It goes through and it ungroups everything. So now I don't have any groups created in my model. It's all been ungrouped. So I can go through and clean it up. And if I wanted to, inside of my project browser, I can go through and actually delete these groups. And I'm not worried about deleting any information out of my model because I know that everything's been ungrouped. Okay. DWG check, this is a great tool as well. So if you have drawings that you've brought into your project, DWG files, you can use the DWG check to go through and locate and find all those DWGs. So you can go through it and show you, it'll show you where you have views or where you have drawings placed. So here's a drawing file. Oh, I didn't realize this detail was a DWG. So I'm going to go through and clean that up or do whatever I need to do with it. So it'll go through if you have 200 drawings that have been imported. Maybe you want to go through and you have certain drawings that you want to change to a link as opposed to an import. This allows you to just go through and locate all the drawings that have been imported. All right, running short on time, so I'm going to go through then and let's talk about these new tools that we have. And these are pretty quick to show, but they're, like I said, they're pretty neat. So let's talk about the shared parameter check tool first. So shared parameter check, what this does is it really goes through and sort of cleans up parameters you might have. So for instance, in this model, let's say I have doors in here that have been built by different individuals, or any family information. I have a bunch of families that have been brought into this project that have shared parameters built into them. They're either in my shared parameter file or probably not in my shared parameter file. And I might have some inconsistencies as far as how those shared parameters have been defined. So with this tool, when I run this utility, what it'll do is it'll go through and evaluate and check every family I have in this project, and it'll look for shared parameters. It'll match those against the shared parameters that I have in my shared parameter file, and it'll again find any inconsistencies or any information that is that opposes each other. So let's see, when it runs through the evaluation, this can take a little bit of time, especially if you have a model that has a lot of data brought into it. You want to pay attention to that. Oh, it's up on my second screen here. So this is showing me that parameter issues. If I look at something like height. So height, it's inconsistent instance versus type. So what that means, if I look at this, I have, it's showing me this little flyout here, and I can get this in a report as well, but it's showing me the number of type usage is 3. Well, the number of instance usage is 1. So that means that 3 families that are in here have a parameter of height, and it's a type parameter. But I have 1 family that's in here that has a parameter of height that is an instance parameter. So I need to go through and fix that. So not only is it shared parameters, but it is sort of parameters in general. So it's really, this is a checking tool, so you can go through and you can evaluate and see where you have inconsistencies or information that does need to be adjusted. I have shared parameters, so these are all shared parameters that exist inside of families that are in this project that do not exist inside of my shared parameter file. So if I want, I can click on Add to File. This allows me to go through and select if I have any shared parameters inside of the families that are here that I want to add to my shared parameter file. I could export them all, or I can go through and select individual parameters that I wanted to export to my shared parameter file. So you have the ability to do this individually one at a time inside of Revit. As you know, you can export parameter to your shared parameter file. But again, this there are two main differences. One, it evaluates the families that are inside of a project, and two, it allows you to do sort of a batch export. So I'm going to export these. I'm going to select the group that I want these to export to inside of my shared parameter file, and click on Add. So now this is telling me that my shared parameter file has been updated. So if I were to go out and look at my shared parameters and look at that shared parameter file, so inside of there, these are now the parameters that were added here because I selected to add using that tool. So that is the shared parameter check tool. The annotation update tool, so let's take a look at that. In here, close some of these. Okay, so I might have a project where, here's an example where I have a door tag is maybe using Roman S font or whatever that is. All my room tags and information are using Arial, and I have someone here that went old school and used a city blueprint font inside of text notes. I want these to all be correct. So with the annotation font update tool, when I select this, what this is going to do is it's going to go through and evaluate everything that's in this project and allow me to fix and update based on whatever font it is I want to change. So if I want all these fonts to be the same font, I can go into this tool and select by font or by category. In this case, I want to use by font because I want to look at everything that is annotation, okay? And what I'm doing is I'm choosing the annotation types to change fonts. So I'm going to change everything that's city blueprint and Roman S. I want the new font to be Arial. So that way I'm changing all this to match what I already have set as Arial. Now it wouldn't make sense to select Arial because I would just be changing Arial to Arial. So these are the fonts that I'm changing. This is the font that I'm changing to. So when I select change, this is going to change my text notes, and it's going to change my door types. It'll change whatever it is. So not only does it change information inside of the project information such as text, view titles, or comments, whatever the case is, this is actually updating family information that's inside of a project. So if you have, again, door tags, window tags, room tags, plumbing fixture tags, column tags, it doesn't matter if it's a component family that's brought into this annotation family, this tool will change the font so that all of your fonts are universal and matched. All right, so the last tool I will go through and show you is our family placement tool. So this new tool is very similar to, if you remember or ever worked inside of maybe AutoCAD architecture, you have the tool palettes. So what this does, it changes or adds a panel now inside of your project browser over here. So this panel is based on a configuration. So I have a folder. I have a folder structure that I've gone through. So you might have a project where you know that, again, these are all maybe I have a K through 12 project folder, and I have a classrooms folder, and I have administrative folder, and I have just general folder, where you have standard families that you use in every project of that type. So you can see in here, for example, I have a families folder that has furniture and seating as subfolders, and then just this general families folder. Well, I have this mapped to be the folder structure that I want to look at. So when I turn on this panel, what it does is it gives me tabs for each of those folders and the nested folders within that. So I have a dining room table and just families folder. Under furniture, I have furniture systems, a couple families in there. Under seating, I have the ever classic Revit Corbusier chair and sofa. So now, instead of going out and insert from family and loading and looking at folders, this is really just a content manager, but it's based on a specific folder structure. So if we look at this, and I'll even open just Windows Explorer to look at this folder structure inside of my folder that I had set up in here. Again, I have a folder that has furniture, seating, and even just this families folder. Again, all this is they're just families that I would place inside of this folder. So when I do that now, I can select maybe seating. So I'm going to select this chair. When I select the chair, it's going to bring up the chair and allow me to place this in the model. If I select furniture, let's say one of these storage cabinets, or this dining room table. If there are types in there, and there should be, it'll allow me to select which type I want to place. Select OK, so now I can place that type. So it's really, like I said, sort of a content manager, but it's based on a specific folder structure that you would define, whether it's per project or by project type, or whatever the case is. I know I said that was the last thing, but I'll show you one more thing in here. So if you are a customer of IMAGINiT or not, or maybe you use our support, or you just have a problem that you need to report that has to do with one of our utilities, we do have a support button in here. So this is a quick and easy way, again, to log a support case, support ticket with our support center. So you're going to enter your email. This is where it's going to get delivered to. If it has to do with an existing case you already have going, you would put the case number in here and describe exactly what's taking place. Now, the advantage to using this tool to log a support case with IMAGINiT is that this will go through and it'll actually collect data for you. So it's not only going to send us this information that you need some help with, it's going to collect and send journal files, any system information. So this is all information that is gathered automatically. You don't have to go through and manually fill out. So this little support tool allows you to log a case really with much less friction. It just makes it, it's an easy button, so to speak. So, and with that, Jana, I am actually done. That's everything I have to present as far as our Revit utilities.
All right, one moment while I end today's recording.